Elon Musk is now worth over $1 trillion. Not a billion, a trillion with a T. And I want to start with this because I think most of us, myself included, actually don't have a working relationship with that number. We hear trillion and our brain just files it under big, right next to billion, next to a lot. But it's not next to billion, it's not even close to billion. Okay, let me try and make this real for you. If you started spending $1 every single second, not saving, not investing, just spending it, right? $1 every second of every minute of every hour of every day. It would take you over 31,000 years to spend $1 billion. $1 trillion is 1,000 billions. So we're talking 31 million years. To put that in perspective, that's longer than humans have ever existed as a species. That's the number we're talking about. And the man holding it is not some sovereign wealth fund, not a country, not an institution. One guy. So today I want to do two things. First, I want to actually understand what happened. How does a human being end up with $1 trillion? What's the real mechanism behind it? And second, and this is the part I actually care about the most, I want to answer the question I think you're really asking, which is, okay, Elon Musk is a trillionaire. So what? What does that mean for me? Should I be worried? Should I be doing something differently? Or is this just rich person news that has nothing to do with my actual life? So let's get into it. So first, how does someone actually become a trillionaire? And here are the basic mechanics. And I think this part is actually important to get right because most of the conversation I see going on about Musk's wealth completely really skips it. On June 12th, 2026, Musk's rocket company SpaceX went public, meaning it listed shares on the stock market for the first time. That IPO, that's initial public offering, priced SpaceX at roughly $1.7 trillion in value, and it raised about $75 billion in the process. That's not just a big IPO, that is by a wide margin the largest IPO in human history, more than 2.5 times bigger than the previous record holder, which was Saudi Aramco back in 2019. Musk owns about 38 to 41% of SpaceX, so when the company got valued at $1.7 trillion on paper, his slice of that, just his ownership stake, was suddenly worth somewhere around $760 to $800 billion. Add in his stake in Tesla, which is still worth somewhere in the range of $280 billion on its own, and you get to, over $1 trillion. In one day, practically overnight, he went from extremely rich to richest human being who has ever lived by a wide margin. Now, breathe for a second. Here's the thing I really want you to sit with, because I think it's the most important fact in this entire story, and it almost never makes it into headlines. He didn't get paid $1 trillion. He didn't receive $1 trillion in cash. What actually happened is that something he already owned got repriced. Think about it like this. Let's say you own a small plot of land that nobody's paying attention to, and then suddenly a massive new road gets built right next to it, or word gets out that there's water underneath it, and now everyone wants that land and its value triples overnight. You didn't do anything new that day. You didn't suddenly become 3 times more productive. The asset you already owned just got more valuable in other people's eyes. That's basically what happened to Musk's SpaceX shares at a much, much larger scale. And this matters because most of that $1 trillion is not money he can spend. A huge chunk of it is locked up literally by rule for 90 to 180 days after the IPO. He's not allowed to sell. And even after that, if he sold a meaningful chunk of his shares all at once, he'd crash the stock price doing it. So when you hear Elon Musk is worth over $1 trillion, what that actually means is if you could sell everything Elon Musk owns today at today's prices all at once with no effect on the market, which is a hypothetical that can never actually happen, you'd get $1 trillion. It's a number on a spreadsheet that represents the potential value, not a number in a bank account. I want to be clear that I'm not saying this to defend him or to make the number sound smaller than it actually is, which is what a lot of people are doing. It's still an almost incomprehensibly enormous amount of value for one person to control. I'm saying it because I think understanding the mechanism is the difference between reacting to this with your gut and actually understanding what's going on. And we're going to need that understanding for the next part of this conversation, because the next part is where it gets a lot more comfortable. What happens when money becomes power? Here's a question I want you to actually think about, not just nod along to. Does money at a certain scale stop being just money? Because here's what I've noticed. When most of us think about wealth, we think about it in terms of consumption. What can you buy? Bigger house, nicer car, more vacations. And at Musk's level, sure, there's some of that. He reportedly has properties through dozens of shell companies, private planes, and land. But if you think the story of $1 trillion is about houses and planes, you are literally completely missing the point. At this scale, money isn't really about consumption anymore, it's about control. And we don't actually have to speculate about this. We have a real documented case study, and it already happened. In 2025, the Trump administration created something called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And the idea originally came from Musk himself. Musk was installed as the most visible face of this effort. And what DOGE actually did was get access to federal information systems, cancel government contracts, push out federal employees, and restructure entire agencies, including, very controversially, getting involved in operations at the Social Security Administration and the agency that handles foreign aid, USAID. Now, here's the part I find the most interesting, and I want to read this carefully because the language matters. The White House's official position was that Musk was just a senior presidential advisor, not someone with formal decision-making power. But Trump himself publicly described Musk as the head of DOGE, and a federal judge actually found that Musk had likely acted as what's called the de facto leader, meaning in practice, regardless of his official title, he was functioning as the person actually running things, specifically in actions that affected US aid. So think about what that means. A private citizen, someone who was never elected, never confirmed by any legislature, who holds no constitutional office, was, according to a federal judge, functionally directing changes to US government agencies. Government agencies that handle, among other things, life or death foreign aid and retirement benefits for tens of millions of people. And it's worth asking, why would the richest man in the world want that kind of role at all? It's not like he needed a government salary. I think the honest answer is that it's not about the salary, it's about influence. It's about a much more efficient version of access. Instead of just lobbying or donating, you simply become embedded inside the machine. By May of 2025, Musk left that former role. And by November 2025, the head of the Office of Personal Management told reporters that DOGE didn't even exist anymore as one centralized thing. Its functions had basically been absorbed into other parts of the government. So in a strict technical sense, that specific chapter closed. But here's what I think is the actual important takeaway. And it's not really about whether DOGE specifically succeeded or failed at cutting government waste. It's this: we just watched in real time a preview of what extreme concentrated wealth can convert into. Not influence in the abstract sense we're used to. Lobbying, campaign donations, that's old news. That's been happening forever. This was something closer to direct operational control over actual government functions. And the fact that it happened once means the door is now open. It's no longer theoretical, it's now a documented precedent. And I think that's the actual fear underneath a lot of the reaction to Musk's $1 trillion moment. It's not jealousy, it's not, I wish I had that much money. It's a more structural worry. When wealth gets concentrated at this scale, does it inevitably start pulling political power toward itself? Does democracy, which is built on the idea of one person, one vote, start to bend when one person has more economic weight than entire countries? And I don't think that's a fringe question. Politicians from very different parts of the political spectrum, Elizabeth Warren on one side, Zoran Mamdani on the other, both pointed to this exact trillionaire milestone as a reason to push for a world tax. And people who disagree on almost everything else look at the same number and reach for the same kind of policy response. That tells you something. That tells you this isn't really a left-right talking point, it's a scale problem. Let me give you the comparison that actually made this click for me. There's a writer who connects Musk to John D. Rockefeller, who became the very first US dollar billionaire back in 1916. At his peak, Rockefeller's fortune was worth about 2.3% of the entire US economy at the time. When Musk crossed roughly $970 billion in early June of 2026, his fortune was worth about 3% of the entire US economy. So in terms of sheer economic gravity, relative to everything else happening in the country, Musk right now might be pulling even more economic weight than Rockefeller did, at the absolute peak of the era we literally call the Gilded Age. The age of the robber barons, the age that eventually triggered antitrust law because people got scared of exactly this kind of concentration. And here's the part that really stopped me. When Musk crossed the $1 trillion line, he was worth nearly 4 times as much as the second richest person on the planet. 4 times. Not 4 times richer than the average person. 4 times richer than the next richest billionaire. That's not really wealthy in the way we normally use that word. It's a different category of existence in and of itself. So, is this fair? I'm honestly going to leave this question a little open because I think you're allowed to land wherever you land on it, and it's genuinely contested. There's a real argument on one side. He built 2 companies, Tesla and SpaceX, that didn't just make him rich, they actually changed industries. SpaceX brought down the cost of launching things into space by a wild amount. Tesla forced the entire global car industry to take electric vehicles seriously a decade earlier than it would have otherwise. There is real, undeniable value creation underneath this fortune. It's not purely extracted from nowhere. But there is also a real argument on the other side, and it's the one I personally keep coming back to. Does the size of the reward have to scale up forever just because the value created is real? At what point does rewarding value creation turn into concentrating so much capital and so much political gravity in one person that it starts to bend the system that's supposed to treat everyone equally? I don't think those two things have to be the same point. I think you can believe Musk built something genuinely valuable, and also believe that no single human being, however brilliant, however hardworking, should end up with more direct sway over government decisions than most elected officials. Those aren't contradictions. They're just two true things that are uncomfortable sitting next to each other. Okay. Alright. So that's political. Okay. Alright. So that's the political structural side of it. Now let's talk about you. Because I know if you've made it this far, somewhere in your head you're going, okay, that's interesting. That's a little unsettling, but I'm not a billionaire. I'm not running for office. I'm just trying to build my life. Does any of this actually touch me? And I really want to give you an honest answer. Not a hype answer, not a doom answer either. Both of these are tempting and both of them are kind of lies, in my opinion. Here's the honest answer to, does this affect my money directly today? No. Not in any mechanical sense, that is. Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire didn't take $1 out of your pocket. It's not inflationary in some direct way that hits your grocery bill. His gain is not literally your loss in the way that, say, if your boss cuts your salary, that's a direct loss to you. No. I want to say that clearly because I think a lot of content about billionaires tries to manufacture a sense of personal injury that isn't really there in any direct mechanical sense, and I don't want to do that to you. That would be dishonest, and honestly, it would also be a little lazy. So why does it matter at all then? Here's where I think it matters, not as a direct cause and effect on your wallet, but as a signal and as a lesson in mechanism. Think about how Musk actually built this. He famously took a salary of $0 from Tesla. Zero. He has said this publicly many times. His wealth did not come from a paycheck, not even a massive one. It came almost entirely from owning equity, ownership stakes, in companies that grew enormously over a long period of time, decades, not years. And I think that's the actual transferable lesson sitting underneath this entire story. And it has nothing to do with rockets or cars. Income, a salary, wages, a fee for your time has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in your day, and your boss or your clients are the ones who decide what an hour off for you is worth. Ownership doesn't have that same ceiling because you're not being paid for your hours anymore. You're being paid for the growth of something you hold a piece of. While you sleep, while you're doing something else entirely, while time itself just passes. Now, I want to be really careful here because this is exactly the point where a lot of content like this goes off the rails into something dishonest. And I'm not telling you, go start a rocket company or you too can become a trillionaire if you just believe in yourself. That would be insulting and it would also just be untrue. Musk's path involved a specific, rare combination of timing, access to capital, risk tolerance, and yes, real talent and real obsessive work. And pretending that's a replicable blueprint for any ordinary person is exactly the kind of hustle culture nonsense that actually I find gross. What I'm saying is this. The underlying principle scales down, even if the size of the outcome obviously doesn't. You don't need to own 40% of a rocket company to benefit from owning something instead of only ever trading your hours for money. That can look like owning equity in a small business you helped build. It can look like consistent, boring investing, index funds, retirement accounts, whatever access you actually have to markets over a long time horizon, not a get-rich-quick window, because getting rich quick doesn't exist. It's not real. It can look like owning your own creative or intellectual work instead of always trading your labor or a flat fee. It can look like owning your own creative or intellectual work instead of always trading your labor for a flat fee. The scale is different. The principle is the same. At some point, you want at least part of your financial life to come from things you own, appreciating, not just hours you sell. There's a second lesson hiding in here too. It's about the gap between net worth and actual cash in hand. We already talked about how most of Musk's $1 trillion is paper wealth, illiquid, locked up and not spendable. That distinction matters for you too, just at a totally different scale. If you ever build any net worth at all, a retirement account, property, equity in something, the same principle applies. What it's worth on paper and what you can actually access and spend right now are two very different numbers, and confusing them is how people get into trouble at every single scale, from a college student to the richest man alive. So if you're asking me very directly, should I be worried? Should I be doing something differently because of this? Here's my honest answer. You shouldn't be worried about your personal financial situation because of this news specifically. But you should let it sharpen two things you're probably already aware of. 1. Start thinking in terms of ownership, not just income, even if what you're able to own right now is small. And 2, get comfortable with the idea that wealth building is a long, often slow, tedious, and invisible process, even for the most extreme example of it that has ever existed in human history. Musk didn't get $1 trillion in 2 years. It took him over 2 decades, with plenty of stretches where, by his own description, he was what he called cash poor, even while sitting on a fortune on paper. So, where does that leave us? I think there are genuinely 2 separate conversations happening aside this one story, and I don't think you need to collapse them into each other. One is a civic conversation, a question about power, about whether democratic systems can stay healthy or one person can outweigh entire governments financially, when a private citizen can become, in a federal judge's own words, the de facto leader of a part of the US government without ever being elected to anything. That's a conversation about values, about what kind of society you want to live in. And honestly, I think you're allowed to find that genuinely unsettling, whatever your politics are. I do. The other is a personal conversation about how you build your own financial life, regardless of what the richest man on the planet is doing. And that conversation barely touches the first one at all. You don't need to resolve how you feel about trillionaires and political power before you go open a retirement account, or finally learn how equity works, to start treating ownership as a real goal instead of an abstract rich person concept. I think the mistake is letting the size of Musk's number distort either conversation. Don't let it talk you into thinking the system is so rigged that your own financial decisions don't matter. That's not true. And it's actually a convenient excuse to do nothing. And do not let it talk you into thinking concentrated power at that scale is just a normal, harmless feature of capitalism that doesn't deserve real scrutiny. Because historically, every single time we've seen wealth concentration reach this kind of extreme, in Rockefeller's era, in the Gilded Age, societies eventually decided it was a problem worth doing something about. So, genuinely, I want to know what you think. Does a number like this even register with you anymore, or has it just become noise? And separately, what does owning something, even something small, actually look like in your life right now? Let me know in the comments, because I think that second question is honestly more useful for both of us. Thank you so much for listening.